guys, it's Dr. Gibson again and welcome back. Today we'll take a quick look at how artificial sweeteners affect the body. And the question of the day is, what's not so sweet about artificial sweeteners? Many of us have substituted artificial sweeteners for sugar just because we know about the negative health effects of sugar on the body. There is a zero version to just about every drink available. An attractive label, 150 to 300 less calories. It sounds like a no-brainer. 0 calories equals 0 effect, right? In our attempt to reduce our daily caloric intake, we've substituted savory alternatives to calorie-loaded ones. This sounds a lot like the low-fat craze, another failed experiment that left us even sicker. The history of artificial sweeteners is just bizarre. The first artificial sweetener developed was saccharin, and it was discovered accidentally in the late 1800s and actually became more popularized in 1901. Then it became banned in 1912, but the ban was reversed during World War I when we ran out of sugar. So it had been on the market for some time, and in 1960 there were some studies that showed that saccharin caused bladder cancer in lab rats. Canada banned it. America put a warning label on it. This was later removed after it was noted that it was just a rat problem, not a human problem. And just as a disclaimer, most of our data that we have for artificial sweeteners are observational studies or studies on lab rats or hamsters or dogs. There's really limited human studies. More recently, there has been a large-scale observational trial that is currently ongoing, which we will discuss a little bit later. Research on artificial sweeteners have really led to inconsistent results previously. Artificial sweeteners such as aspartame, saccharin, sucralose, xylitol are 200 to 13,000 times as sweet as regular table sugar. And of late, we've heard of stevia and monk fruit extract, but these are also considered to be artificial sweeteners because although they originated from natural sources, they are just so highly processed that they're considered to be artificial. So what are possible adverse health effects of artificial sweeteners? Well, artificial sweeteners can lead to changes in the gut microbiome, might lead to chronic kidney disease, increase the risk of cardiovascular disease, as well as strokes, obesity, and diabetes mellitus type 2. So let's think about what happens when we ingest these hypersweet food. Basically, as we talked about previously, the brain consumes about 20% of the entire glucose consumption of our body, although it only weighs about 2% of our body weight. When we ingest these hyper sweet food, it just stimulates the brain, and the brain is expecting calorie-dense food. Remember, the brain feeds off glucose. In the past, calories would equilibrate to survival. So what happens when the brain does not get the expected calories? Then there is a boost of appetite, and basically we continue to crave calorie-dense food. So although initially there is weight loss due to the decreased caloric intake from these 0 or low calorie sweeteners, eventually this response is dampened simply because our bodies crave more energy dense foods, and eventually we get hungrier and we consume more calories per day ultimately. The overstimulation of the sugar receptors from frequent use of these hyper sweet substances might dampen our response to other types of food and make other food less palatable, such as our fruits and vegetables and spices. Also of note, in the San Antonio heart trial, people who consumed greater than 21 diet sodas per week were found to have an increased risk of obesity. Speaking of lab rats actually preferred saccharin to cocaine. We have no human trials to prove that point. There's another point that I found absolutely interesting. Aspartame is converted to formaldehyde. Ever considered drinking just a shot of formaldehyde? Animal studies have shown that low-calorie sweeteners do cause changes in the gut microbiota, which lead to weight gain as well as increased blood glucose. Human trials are actually quite limited, but have also shown changes in the gut microbiota with substances such as aspartame, saccharin, and sucralose. These are reversed once these substances are removed from the diet. Artificial sweeteners have also been shown to lead to liver necrosis, inflammation, and fibrosis in rodents due to oxidative stress. We have discussed the lack of large randomized control trials on humans regarding artificial sweeteners, but there is a large prospective observational cohort study called the NutriNet Santé study, which started in 2009 in France and is ongoing and will actually end in May 2029. So this is a pretty long study of over 20 years. And it also includes a large amount of participants, over 100,000 participants. This study was basically set up to investigate the relationship between nutrition and health. And it definitely suggested a potential direct association between higher artificial sweetener consumption and increased cardiovascular disease risk. This study showed a direct association between artificial sweetener consumption and increased cardiovascular risk. In fact, data published in March of 2022 show that people who consume just 2 packets of artificial sweeteners, or about half a can of diet soda, were at increased risk for cancers, specifically breast cancers and obesity-related cancers, as well as cardiovascular disease and stroke risk. So this makes us wonder, what's the possible cause of this? Is it an issue with the gut microbiota, the influence on metabolism, inflammation, possible oxidative stress? We really don't know the etiology of this association. And please remember as well that artificial sweeteners are sometimes hidden in places we really don't expect to find it. I found sucralose in microwavable popcorn a couple weeks ago. So what's the take-home message here about artificial sweeteners? Here's what I would say. Don't try to find a sugar substitute, just cut back on the sugar. Otherwise, you might ingest substances such as formaldehyde without even knowing it. Humans and rats are definitely distinctly different. But if what we mainly have are studies on rats, it's really just hard to ignore. Once again, I'm Dr. Gibson. Thank you for joining me today. If you enjoyed what you heard, please like and subscribe below. Otherwise, just join me again next week. Until next time, bye.